email arrived at 6:12 a.m. I just want to say how impressed we are with your work. The clarity, the insight, the professionalism meets exactly what we've been looking for. David Harris read the line twice, then smiled. He had learned not to smile too early. Years of freelancing taught him optimism had to be careful, measured. Still, this one felt different. The client was a fast-growing tech firm. Mid-size, ambitious, hungry for credibility. They had found David through his online portfolio articles, strategy decks, analytics breakdowns, case studies. Everything clean. Everything sharp. No photo on the website. Just work. They'd been emailing for weeks. Long threads. Late-night responses. Voice notes praising his ideas. One manager even wrote, "You explain things better than anyone we've worked with." Eventually, they asked for a Zoom call. David agreed but suggested voice only. They didn't question it. The call lasted an hour and a half. They laughed. They interrupted each other with excitement. Someone said, "I wish our whole team thought like you." At the end, the director said, "Honestly, we'd love to bring you in for an in-person session." Meet the team. Kick this off properly, Dave. David hesitated. Not because he didn't want the job, because he knew what sometimes happened when the screen turned on. Still, he said yes. The building was downtown. Glass front, Camilla Company logo etched into steel. The kind of place that smelled like money and confidence. David arrived 10 minutes early. He wore a charcoal jacket, black shirt, clean shoes. Professional. Neutral. No room for excuses. At the reception desk, a young white woman looked up. "Yes. I'm here for a meeting," David said calmly. "David Harris," she typed. Frowned slightly. Typed again. "Who are you meeting with?" "Laura Bennett." Strategy director. The receptionist glanced at him again, this time slower. "Do you have an ID?" David blinked. "For a meeting?" "Yes." "Company policy." He handed it over without comment. She studied the card longer than necessary, then picked up the phone. "Security," she said quietly. David felt it in his chest before he fully understood it. The pause. The shift. A man in a navy uniform appeared within minutes. Tall. Broad. Neutral expression. "Sir," he said, not unkindly. "Is there a problem?" "I'm here for a meeting," David replied. "They're expecting me." "Too." The guard nodded. "We just need to verify." From the corner of his eye, David noticed employees passing by. Some glanced. Some stared. One slowed down. Thief. Inside the glass conference room, David saw familiar faces. The same people who had praised his ideas. They were laughing. Then Laura looked out. A smile froze. Confusion crossed her face. Then something else. Recognition. She stood abruptly and walked out. "Oh, David," she said, "a bit too late." "You're here." "Yes," he said. As planned, silence settled over the lobby. The security guard glanced between them. Laura cleared her throat. "He's with us." The guard nodded and stepped back. No apology. The receptionist avoided David's eyes. Laura gestured toward the conference room. "Please, come in." Inside, the energy was gone. The room felt smaller. Slad people, shuffled papers they didn't need. Someone pretended to check emails. David took his seat. "So," Laura said brightly. Too brightly. "Great to finally meet you in person." David smiled politely. "Yes," he said. "It is." They began. Jet. David walked them through the strategy he had already explained online. Same words. Same insights. Same confidence. This time, interruptions came quicker. Are you sure that would scale? We've tried something similar before. That's interesting. Interesting. An hour ago, it had been brilliant. Halfway through, someone asked, "So, how did you get into this line of work?" David answered. Another asked, "Did you work alone on your portfolio?" Yes. A third leaned back. Impressive, but it didn't sound like praise. It sounded like surprise. The meeting ended early. Laura walked David back to the lobby. "Thank you for coming in," she said. "We'll discuss internally and get back to you." David nodded. Outside, the city felt louder, colder. He didn't check his phone. He already knew. 2 days passed. Then 3. Finally, an email. "After careful consideration, we've decided to move in a different direction." No explanation. David didn't reply. Instead, he opened his laptop. He duplicated his website. Same layout, same work, same words. This time, the name at the top read, Daniel Harris. He sent the link to 3 new companies, and 1 familiar one. Within a week, responses poured in. Praise, excitement, urgency. One message made his stomach drop. It was from Laura. "Daniel, we came across your work and were blown away. Would love to discuss an in-person collaboration." David stared at the screen for a long time. Then he replied. The second visit felt surreal. This time, the receptionist smiled warmly. "Welcome. Can I get you water?" "No," ID asked. "No security." Inside the conference room, handshakes came quickly. "Daniel, it's great to finally meet you." David sat down slowly. "Yes," he said. "We've met before." Confusion rippled through the room. "I was here last month," he continued, as David Harris. Silence crashed down. Laura's face drained of color. "Jed." David opened his laptop and projected 2 websites side by side. Identical. Only the names were different. "I wanted to understand something," David said calmly. "Why my ideas were trusted online, praised on calls, celebrated in emails." He looked around the table, and why my presence changed that. No one spoke. David stood. "You caused security on David Harris," he said. "But you invited Daniel Harris to lead your strategy." He closed his laptop. "This wasn't about skill," he said. "It was about comfort." He walked out. This time, people watched. That night, David wrote everything down. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't accuse. He simply described what happened. He posted it. By morning, the story had spread. Professionals shared it. Students shared it. Executives shared it quietly. Comment after comment read the same. "This happened to me. I thought I was imagining it. Thank you for putting words to it." The company released a statement. David didn't read it. He didn't need to. A week later, a different firm contacted him. Diverse leadership. Direct communication. The first line of the email read, "We saw your work long before we saw your story. It's a career." The interview was honest, human, equal. At the end, the director said, "One question. Would you have trusted us if you hadn't gone through what you did?" David paused. "I trust actions," he said. "Not words." They hired him. On his first day, no one asked for his ID. No one questioned his presence. David updated his website one last time. He added a photo. Not because he had to, because he chose to. The attention didn't disappear overnight. David thought it would. He issue. People would read, react, then move on to the next story the internet handed them. But this one lingered. It stayed in feeds. It resurfaced in conversations. It followed him in ways he hadn't expected. At first, it was emails. Long ones. Strangers explaining their own versions of the same moment. The same pause at a reception desk. The same look of doubt. The same forced smile that said, "You don't belong here," even when no words were spoken. One message stood out. "I used your story in our hiring meeting today." It read, "Some people were uncomfortable." That told me everything. David closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. Discomfort. That was the word people kept using. Assess. The problem was the feeling, not the cause. A few days later, he walked into a cafe near his new office. He ordered his coffee, waited, then noticed the barista staring at him. "Hey," she said suddenly. "Are you the guy?" David smiled faintly. "Depends which guy." "The one who wrote that post," she said. "About the office." "The security guard." He nodded. She handed him his cup. "Thank you," she said quietly. "My brother goes through this all the time." David didn't know what to say, so he just nodded back. Moments like that began happening more often. Not praise, not applause, just recognition. The kind that felt heavy rather than celebratory. At work, things were different. Not perfect, but different. People listened when he spoke. Not because he was loud, because they expected him to be right. And when he pushed back, no one flinched. Still, old instincts didn't vanish overnight. The first time someone walked past his desk without acknowledging him, his shoulders tightened automatically. The first time a new hire hesitated before asking him a question, he noticed. Bias wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was subtle enough to doubt yourself. One afternoon, his manager called him into her office. "I want to check in," she said. "The attention around you, how are you handling it?" David thought for a moment. "It's strange," he said. "I didn't want to be visible this way." She nodded. "But you are." "Yes," he replied. "And that comes with responsibility I didn't ask for." She leaned forward. "Do you regret sharing it?" David shook his head slowly. "I regret that it needed to be shared." Outside the office, the world felt sharper. People watched more closely. Sometimes with admiration. Sometimes with skepticism. Once, on the subway, a man stared at him for several stops before finally speaking. "You trying to make everyone look racist?" the man asked. David met his eyes. "No," he said calmly. "I'm trying to make people look honest." The man scoffed and turned away. That night, David thought about the difference between accusation and exposure. He hadn't accused anyone of hatred. He had simply held up a mirror. Some people didn't like what they saw. A month later, he received an invitation to speak at a corporate diversity panel. The email was polite, carefully worded. He declined. Then another came. And another. Eventually, he agreed to one on his terms. No slogans, no branding. No shallow apologies. Just conversation. All. On the day of the event, he stood backstage, listening to executives speak about inclusion. The words were familiar, well-practiced, safe. When it was his turn, David walked out and looked at the room. "Oh, I'm not here to inspire you," he said. "I'm here to unsettle you." A ripple of unease moved through the audience. "I didn't experience racism because someone hated me," he continued. "I experienced it because someone felt more comfortable questioning me than trusting me." Silence. That comfort is the problem. Afterward, a man in a tailored suit approached him. "I never thought of it that way," he said. "I guess I assumed good intentions were enough." David nodded. "Intentions don't open doors," he replied. "Actions do." As weeks turned into months, the intensity faded. The story became part of the background noise of the internet. But its effects remained. David noticed changes in himself. He spoke up faster. He hesitated less. He stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. One evening, he received a message from Laura. He hadn't heard from her since the second meeting. The email was short. "I think about what happened, more than you realize. I'm trying to change things here." David stared at the screen. He didn't feel satisfaction. He felt distance. He replied simply, "I hope you do." Nothing more. That was enough. Later that night, David updated his portfolio again. Not the work, just the introduction. He added one sentence. "I believe talent deserves equal access to opportunity." It wasn't dramatic. It was honest. The next morning, he walked into the same office building where he now worked full-time. The security guard at the entrance nodded at him, smiled even. "Morning," he said. "Morning," David replied. The interaction was small, ordinary, and that was the point. Not special treatment, just normal. At his desk, David opened a new document. He began writing again. Not about racism. Not about bias. About systems. About how trust is built and how easily it can be broken. About how professionalism is often coded, filtered through comfort, shaped by familiarity. He wrote because that was what he did best. Later that day, a junior colleague stopped by his desk. "I read your story," she said. "It's made me think about how often I stay quiet." David looked up. "Why do you stay quiet?" She shrugged. Because I don't want to be seen as difficult." He smiled gently. "Silence is never neutral," he said. "It always sides with something." She nodded slowly and walked away. That evening, as David left the office, he caught his reflection in the glass doors. Same face, same posture. Same man who had once stood in a lobby being questioned. The difference wasn't how others saw him now, it was how he saw himself. He no longer wondered if he belonged. He knew he did. And if a system couldn't see that, then the problem had never been him.